back after a brief break. You're watching South Texas Crossfire with your host, attorney Joe Flores. Special thanks to Lopez Broadcasting, over 50 years in the business, and the Hispanic Latin-owned 8 radio stations and growing, and a couple of television stations and programming for over 1 million Latinos. And you're also our station, K Alamo in San Antonio. Welcome to our listeners. And we're also going to be playing this on KTMV every 6 hours, round the clock, in October and November. With me, I've got a great guest. He's a Texas super lawyer. He's also been highly regarded for jury verdicts, and he's also worked on both sides, defense and plaintiff, so he knows the law on both sides of it. I give you a great friend of ours, and we welcome him, Kevin Liles. How are you?
Hey, Joe.
Well, thank you for joining us. It is about time. Last time we were going to film at federal court. It all went apart, but I'm glad you're here. Tell us a little bit about your education, training, and background.
Sure. You've got a tremendous show here, I want to say.
Thank
it's an
you.
honor for me to be a part of it. I appreciate you having me today. I went to law school at Baylor, graduated from Baylor Law School, and went straight from there to a job at an international firm, defense firm in Houston called Fulbright and Jaworski. A lot of good experience there. Handled a docket of commercial litigation, which is cases involving claims between businesses, against businesses, for businesses, that sort of thing. Also had a docket of cases that I defended in car wrecks on behalf of State Farm and some other insurance companies and that sort of thing. So I got a taste of what the other side, as I call them now, does in their business practice and sort of some of the claims that are involved in that. But after about 5 years of that, 4 to 5 years, I decided that my heart was kind of in different places. I decided to take a job here in Corpus Christi and moved down here from Houston. Took a job with a lawyer named Michael Watts, who grew up here, has a practice here for some period of time before he moved on to San Antonio, and practiced with him for a good 10 years, learning a lot of different cases and working on claims against auto manufacturers and tire manufacturers for defects in those products. Really representing families who had lost loved ones either through death or a very significant injury that was life-changing to them and their family, and representing those interests in bringing claims, like I said, against various corporations that may have been responsible for those. So had a lot of experience doing that, tractor-trailer type collisions, which we are handling a lot of right now, but just a wide array of claims on behalf of people who were injured, trying to hold those companies responsible for the injuries. And did that for a period of time, and then went out on my own. It's been about 3 years now that Brian Harris, my partner, and I went out and started our own business, and been doing the same kind of work here in Corpus Christi, in Texas, and really across the nation, because these kinds of claims occur everywhere, and we get pulled in or asked to represent folks across the nation.
I noticed that on your website too, and that's the website that they can go to if they want to learn more about your firm is Liles and Harris?
Yes, it's www.liles, L-I-L-E-S, Harris, Harris.com.
And that's lilesharris.com. And I want to commend you for the job you do. A lot of the time, I think insurance companies and the anti-lawsuit, they have their entitled to their opinion, but I think that great efforts have been made. Crossroads of America, the Koch brothers, multi-billion dollars have been spent to vilify lawyers, to separate, I always give these public speeches and I say, if you separate a lawyer from their client, what do you have? Courthouse doors being closed. Mm-hmm. And you and your reputation and your firm's reputation contradict that stereotype of a lawyer, because you're speaking for the injured. So one of the cases that, and I know it, and first of all, to anybody who's been injured or who's passed away, my deepest regrets to your family and comfort them. But there is a case that involved Dram Shop, and I'd like for you to just tell people a little bit about what Dram Shop law is, and maybe if you can comment on the case, I think it would be very illuminating to our audience.
Sure. Let me start by just kind of defining what the term is. Not everybody knows what a dram shop case is. And a dram shop is basically a bar or an institution that sells alcohol. That's really what it is. And what people don't recognize necessarily or understand is that dram shops are highly regulated organizations and businesses in our state and across the whole nation. What that means is that our Texas legislature recognized years ago, decades ago, that the product that they sell, alcohol, is a drug, and it's a dangerous product. And because it's such a dangerous product, they govern rules and set rules that these businesses must abide by in order to be able to sell this drug in our community. And we require that, we expect that, we must have that, because unsafe service of a drug like alcohol really puts all of us at risk. And so a dram shop case that we brought just recently is bringing claims against a dram shop, or in this case it was a bar, and bringing claims against them for requiring them to sell alcohol safely. And in the case that we brought, it was the jury found that they did not do that, and that the unsafe sale of alcohol resulted in the death of an 18-year-old boy.
Oh my God.
So, and just to kind of basically touch on some of the claims in that case, what we had was a 22-year-old gentleman who went to a club, and he drank at that club for a period of 4 to 5, 6 hours, between about 4 o'clock at night to 10 p.m. at night. And over that time frame, we believe that the jury found that he was served anywhere at least 17 drinks over that period of time. And his BAC, or blood alcohol content, got up to 0.24, which is 3 times the legal limit. In Texas, the legal limit for impairment, intoxication, is 0.08. And so this gentleman was 0.24 at the end of the night, when he became so belligerent at the club that he was actually kicked out of the club. He was taken from the club by a bouncer and put straight into his car. Walked to his car in that belligerent, obviously intoxicated condition. You can imagine what happened, and that's exactly what did. He was so intoxicated that he got in his car, and over the next 7 minutes, he got on a highway, made a U-turn to go against the flow of traffic on a highway, and had a head-on collision with a boy that was going to meet some friends, to play video games. And the head-on collision killed both the innocent victim, the 18-year-old boy, as well as the drunk that was driving.
And I hate to interrupt you, but you said something that just floored me, and rarely I get floored. You're saying that the security or the bouncer at the club walked him to his car?
That's right.
And after they served him, and that he was 3-4 times the legal limit. Unbelievable. So this thing went to trial, I take it.
It did. The bar refused to take any responsibility, and what bars can do is they can hide behind the legal standard that's provided for them and say, well, it really wasn't that obvious to us that at the time that we served him that he was intoxicated. And that's really the standard. The jury has to find that at the time the bar served him, it was apparent to the bar that he was obviously intoxicated. And so they stand behind that and say, hey, look, we just didn't know that he had that much to drink, or he was that intoxicated. We provided evidence between the video surveillance that the club had and other witnesses that were at the club that the guy was plenty intoxicated, and you should have known it. And the jury agreed with us and found that the bar was irresponsible in their service of the alcohol. And they also found that they were negligent in the way that they handled him after he left the bar by not having policies in place that keeps the bouncer from putting this obviously intoxicated guy in a car.
A lot of the times what I've heard is that they'll stop keeping a record of how much they're buying and say, we'll keep serving him, just cut him off, shut off the bill, and let him pay cash or something. And so on these cases, how do you get to the bottom of it? Common sense would dictate, did these guys try to even destroy the video? How did you even get a hold of the video that showed him drinking all those hours?
Well, in this particular case, we had several different issues on that. There were 2 bars that he was bouncing back and forth between.
2 bars now?
2 bars, but they were owned by the same management. They literally share a wall. In one of the bars, we were able to get the video surveillance on, and the other bar, the owner decided not to hand it over. And so we knew a lot about what happened in the bar with the video surveillance and not as much with the bar without surveillance, if that makes sense. We were fortunate to find the witnesses. It took a lot of investigation, which our several members of my firm were very dedicated for months trying to run down witnesses and figure out what they knew, building the case that we knew we were going to have to present to a jury. So we were fortunate to get the information in that case that showed that the bar knew and should have known better than to serve him and continue to serve him.
Well, and this is just one of many cases that you handled, and my condolences to the family. He was 18 years old. Was he already was he a senior, or were we going to college?
He had just graduated from Carroll High School at the time of this. He had just started another job, or his first job out of high school, and he was in that position while he was looking at colleges and trying to figure out the next step. And he was 2 days into his job at the time that this crash took his life. Devastating for his parents and family, of course, life-changing event for them. Very brave folks to be able to stand up and in his honor, push forward and hold this bar accountable for what they did and didn't do. And I'm very proud and honored to have represented them, and really impressed with the strength of their resolve to be able to take this through trial and relive a lot of the very difficult times that they experienced with learning of his death and the difficulties that they've had in moving forward since his death. But very, very honored to represent that family and see what all they've been through. But let me also say this, Joe, because you touched on it a little bit earlier. There are bars, countless bars, that operate in our community that serve alcohol responsibly. And there are policies in place, like you were saying earlier, that counting drinks that somebody may have and finding out a time when, okay, you've had too many at this bar, we're going to cut you off. We're going to make you buy some food. We're going to keep you here, drink some water before you are able to leave our establishment. And it's only really the bars that don't go to that extra step, don't put the policies in place to protect their own servers from over-serving people, that are the target of the kind of lawsuits that we bring. Because we're not trying to say that the people that drink alcohol in bars have no responsibility for what happens when they get in a car and drive. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what this particular lawsuit was about, and what this jury really sent a message in their verdict about, was bars have a responsibility to safely serve alcohol. And if they don't, we're going to hold them responsible for that. And while they're out there trying to make as much money as they can as businesses that sell a product, we recognize in our community that alcohol is a dangerous product to sell. And if you're going to sell it irresponsibly, we're going to hold you accountable for it.
Well, very well said. One of the things that we try to do here is be the voice of the injured, be the voice of those that have lost somebody, because it's an answer to Bay Area citizens, other organizations that say that people who file a lawsuit just want to win the lotto. How do you respond to that sort of propaganda that not only lawyers are just greedy and that just are doing it for the money, and that people that file lawsuits just want to hit a lotto, which is a lot of the propaganda? This heart-wrenching story you've just shared with over 300,000 viewers and more on radio, the listeners. How do you respond to that kind of propaganda?
You know what? We have a system in place with the laws that are in place to protect all of us in our communities, that if we are wronged, we can bring a lawsuit against those who may be accountable. We have a burden of proof that we have to bring evidence in order to show that. And the 7th Amendment of our Constitution gives us the right to a jury trial, a jury of our peers, to decide what the outcome of that claim or dispute is going to be. And that's extremely important. And so we believe that when we bring our evidence and we put it in front of a jury of our peers and we advise them, or we talk to them about the importance of what they do and the importance of their decisions, not only in this particular case that affects the lives of those litigants that are in front of them, but that also any decision that they make has a bigger reach. It affects how conduct is affected in our communities at large. And so we believe that bringing these claims is extremely important, not only to compensate those who have been wronged because of the wrongdoing of someone else, if a jury so finds, but also to allow our communities as a whole to look at conduct and evaluate it, and then send messages through the verdicts that they have that, hey, this is not going to be allowed, and so that everyone else in our community can see the effect of that and change their behavior accordingly so that future people are not injured or hurt, and that protects all of us.
And you know, I always give judges and lawyers closing arguments when they come on here. People that are watching out there that may serve on a jury down the road, that may have somebody that has been injured or maybe have lost somebody. What would you like to tell those people out there, the common working man and woman out there who may not know a lot about our system, the law, and serving on the jury? What would you like to tell them in your closing argument here?
Well, I can't I guess what I would say to somebody that comes to me that has lost a loved one is, it is your right, it is your responsibility to look into whether the person that you've lost has been lost because of the wrongdoing of someone else. And I think that it is difficult at times for people that have gone through such a catastrophic loss, a life-changing event, to think about holding others accountable, because in some ways we don't want to do that. We don't want to necessarily point the finger, but our laws provide for that, and I think that it is an extremely important responsibility that we all have to hold those accountable for the wrongdoing that they have, to make sure that people who have lost loved ones or had injuries, catastrophic injuries, smaller injuries needlessly, that we hold those people accountable and responsible for doing that.
And that's Kevin Liles, Texas super lawyer. He's honored us by coming on today and educated us a little bit more about how to defend your rights, and if you serve on a jury, to keep an open mind. Don't let that propaganda make you lose sight of common sense. I know from trying over 50 cases myself on federal, civil, and administrative law that people are not idiots that sit on a jury. They know when somebody's trying to sell them a bill of goods. And I'm glad that you had at least some justice, some voice for that poor young man. And you can reach Kevin at lilesharris.com.
Right.
And if you have any questions about this show, please call us, or you can call Mr. Liles directly, and that number is
826-0100.
And that's 826-0100. We'd like to have you on again and talk about different areas of personal injury law, commercial law, and a lot of stuff that's coming up about products that I think that people don't know about, consumer safety. We'd be honored to have you on again.
That'd be great. It'd be my honor too. Thank you.
Kevin Liles, thank you so much, buddy. We're out of time. Dave is pulling the cane, me off stage. Thank you guys for watching. Los quiero mucho. A toda mi raza and everybody else out there. God bless.